This is the Kestrel Country Podcast, where we discuss the people, places, and events all around Kestrel Country. Michal Carnahan.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on the Kestrel Country Podcast.
Yeah.
I'm glad you could.
I'm glad I could too.
So, Michal, we've known each other since forever.
Yep.
A long time, which is fun. But you've bounced back between Moscow and Portland. So give us a little background on what brought you to Moscow, I guess both times.
Both times. Well, I was born in Moscow.
Yeah.
So that's the first time.
And that you had no control over that.
I was not in control. Born at Gritman Hospital. Yeah. And was raised here, went to college here at University of Idaho, went to the music school. And I graduated with my voice degree and had a desire to perform and be in the jazz world. I wanted to go sing and perform jazz, and there wasn't a lot of opportunity in the old Moscow, Idaho to make it big on the jazz scene or even just do anything. So I left after graduating and just moved to Portland and was there for 14 years, performing in jazz and also working in soul music and funk, gospel, pop, all sorts of, and other random projects, and also worked at my church there, leading worship. Was on the worship team and coordinated everything for the church for 8 years. And so that I had one foot in the church world and one foot out in the secular performance world there. And it was such a wonderful life of a musician, I'd say. Like, I was able to support myself, and that was kind of, I guess, rare. Just even, I ended up buying a house like 3 years before I moved back, which is still crazy to me that I could do that as a single woman, as a musician. So then what brought me back? So 2020 this is the story, isn't it?
Everything shifts with 2020.
2020, it turns out when you perform for large audiences, they didn't really like that in COVID. No. They didn't like, they didn't like churches meeting, and they didn't like big events. So basically, my whole world ended in COVID. I was at home, and I didn't have any shows or any gigs. Besides, we had some random live streaming gigs. So there's live streaming companies that would, hire us to come out, and which was such a refreshment, like doing it the few times I did. And then for my church, we weren't allowed to meet. And so I was actually leading worship from my living room on Facebook. And so the pastor, one of the pastors at our church, would preach sermons from his house and live stream. And then we'd do a separate live stream of the worship, so people would log on from church, and I'd just play my piano and sing, and that was life for a long time there. I learned a lot about live streaming. Anyway, so it was a little bit dark, shall we say. And then I reconnected with an old friend of mine in July of 2020. He reached out to me, asked me about if I knew anybody in Moscow that was teaching voice lessons that weren't classical style, and for his daughter. And I said I didn't know anybody that was not classical, but I knew I was going to be up in Moscow in a couple weeks because my cousin was getting married. And so I said I would be happy to teach her a lesson while I'm in town. And then he started like asking me other questions in the meantime, like, hey, how's life? And I thought, what's going on? Long story short, he asked me out on a date like in October of 2020. So it was like 3 months of not even hearing from him. And I was in Portland, and he called me and asked me next time I came up to Moscow if I'd go out. And I said, yeah. I'd actually been praying about him for 3 months. and asking God to, if he's the guy, then that he would pursue me. And then that is what happened. So I came up, went on a date with him, and a couple days later we were in a relationship. And then, things kind of flew from there. I ended up moving back to Moscow in January of 2021. We got engaged on New Year's Eve. And then, so January 2021 is when I moved back to Moscow. And then we got married in May of 2021. So it was all of this like, hey, my life is ending in Portland. And I never thought I would leave Portland. Yeah. But it was, and then God had answered my prayers because I was an old single lady. Right. So it's 36 and I was like, what's going on? But it was such a blessing in so many ways. And I've been so thankful to be back, to be married now with 4 stepkids and 4 stepkids and being near my family and old friends. All of it's just been such a surprising gift of life to me.
Right.
So
a whole new shift.
Yeah. Just like, wow, I didn't see myself coming back here.
I think it's fascinating what comes along the corner because you just never know.
Right.
From small things like speaking of music, I grew up really disliking country music because my dad didn't like country music.
Yep.
Well, then lo and behold, I marry a guy, this is a small thing, who is into country. And so you start liking country. And then my dad likes country now.
Oh, wow.
And it's just, that's a teeny tiny example.
Yeah.
But just how things shift and change where you're so sure this,
this is it.
This is it. Or it looks like it's going to be something. And it's always surprising. And it's always usually good.
Yes.
God plans it way better than we plan it.
Yes.
Which is a good thing.
Uh-huh.
But so that brought you back to Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
But you've still been doing music.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of music? Is it still jazz that you've been able to do?
Yes, and
okay.
Jazz plus.
Nice.
So I started out my whole career. I was like, jazz is it.
I've always loved jazz.
I've loved jazz, and honestly, part of why I was like, I'll do jazz is because I told myself I never wanted to write music. I thought, if I write music, it'll be boring, or if I write music, I'll have to share like my internal feelings, and I didn't want to do that. Yeah. So I said, you know what? I really like jazz, and hey, I can get away with just singing jazz standards and having a career. Right. And so that's what I did. But then it turns out actually I needed to write music. And so now I'm doing, I do jazz and I do some original music. I do a lot of, I love soul music and R&B and funk. And so I do a lot of that. That's kind of actually the preferred genre for me because actually young people kind of care about it a little bit.
So there's a listenership.
I see like a little bit more energy from the audience engagement is like much different. Where jazz is like, people are like, that was very nice. Oh, that's very nice. Oh, and little slow golf clap, Ooh.
Yeah, that was the pleasant background.
Pleasant. That sounds so pleasant.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a totally different vibe as a performer to have people shouting at you because they're so excited or,
Yeah.
So now what I'm doing is I've been lucky enough because I'm, this is a small town and Pullman's a small town and Moscow's a small town, but we've got 2 universities here, state universities with 2 music schools. And with that comes professors who play and would like to play. And so I've got professional musicians here in Moscow that I get to play with from Washington State and from University of Idaho. And it's been wonderful to connect with them. And we've formed a couple different things here and there, small duos, or I have a new band called MKJD Project, which is half University of Idaho profs and half WSU. That wasn't planned. It just is. So there's not a war
between the two.
Except University of Idaho wins because I went there. So
you have loyalties.
I do have loyalties.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do a lot of soul that, anything that we can do.
And where are you performing?
We're performing at Rico's in Pullman, and Bootsers, and hoping to do a few more places. But they all have real jobs too. And I am, busy stepmomming. So
Yes.
stepmomming and wifing, I guess.
Yeah. Which fills the day.
It feels, it
Very,
feels
very
some
much.
time. And I'm still getting my, still getting used to like what that means. So, I'm performing and, doing some voice lessons.
Yeah. So we wanted to ask about that. So what all do you offer with your music? With your teaching?
With my teaching. So, I teach out of my home and I'm teaching female students because I understand the female voice.
Right.
Actually, it's like I could teach men, but it's still like this kind of mystery because dang it, they have way more range than we do. And I just, well, I'd probably need to actually study.
Right. Well, and it's probably
vocal
harder
pedagogy.
to explain something, like especially if you're trying to teach them how it feels or something like that. Okay.
So I feel like I have a limitation in that in teaching male vocalists, although I'm sure it could help in some ways. But yeah, so I teach like some vocal technique. One of my biggest things with vocal technique has been how do you sing in a way that won't damage your voice, that maintains vocal health. Because
is that especially true for jazz or R&B?
It's true for any genre.
Okay.
So classical training taught me this. So I was taught classically in college, and it's such a game changer. I was to be able to sing for hours and not have your voice get tired is great. Like, and that's what it should be. 'Cause if you are getting tired, then you're damaging it. And that can lead to like serious vocal problems if you're performing all the time.
Yeah.
Like the lovely Adele, she had vocal nodes, which is because she was thrashing her voice, and those can be surgically removed. But yeah, it's not a good way to sing. So singing without tension and all that. So I teach people technique, and I teach them basically in the style of music that they want to do. So I have them come in like, what do you want to sing? Like what would you like to sing better? Bring me a pop song. I'll do my best to like find some accompaniment or play it myself. And yeah, because I want people to be excited about what they're singing.
Right.
And so I do classical, I do, Americana, I do jazz, I do R&B, pop, whatever people want to do.
And so do you teach them all basically the classical method, but then how do you sing that way with the right technique?
Right. It's kind of using the same concepts.
Okay.
The same concepts of how to sing without tension. Like, okay, you're gonna need to hold your jaw and mush your words for a minute, and we'll figure out how to keep your jaw relaxed, and we do that with all styles. Or there's lots of weird things. I'm like, okay, hold your tongue out and sing with your tongue out. It's weird. Try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But figure it out. Have you had anybody, so just jumping, in terms of, the people who say, oh, I just can't sing?
Not people that say like, I just can't sing. I have people that's, it's crazy. It's usually the people actually that are the best that are going, oh, I could never. Oh, I could never do that. Like, that's just no. There's no way I could ever perform at an open mic. Like, have you been to an open mic? Oh, yes, you can. Yes. So there's people that come in, and there's some people that don't necessarily have a desire to like be any sort of performer. They just want to learn how to sing better in church, or they want to learn how to sing in a choir. And so I do all kinds of teaching around that, where I'm just going through like basic music training too. So like, not just, so I teach vocal technique, but then I also go to, okay, if you're having a hard time with pitch,
Right.
let's train your ears. Like so we do ear training, and I do the solfege stuff, and we go through all that, and or rhythm, how, I'll set the metronome up, and we work through sight reading, we work through all things. It's kind of the whole package with with singing, because if you don't have pitch and you don't have rhythm, nobody really wants to hear.
Right. Well, or you're going
Your
to struggle,
technique.
or even if you mentioned for your own enjoyment,
Right.
you're going to struggle and
Right.
not enjoy what you're singing.
Exactly. So it's been cool to see people grow in confidence and grow their skills, and even the most basic things, just pitch awareness and
Right.
how do you find a pitch when you only have one pitch? How do you jump from this? Yeah.
To read the music and sight read it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a skill.
It is a skill, and it's not something that's like God-given. Sight reading, you actually just have to learn to work at.
I mean, there's the perfect pitch, which is my sister has that.
Your sister.
I know.
It
was one of those things where growing up, if you were practicing something and she's out of the room, like, nope, it's supposed to be an A. You're like,
and who was my accompanist in college? Your sister.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, you didn't know?
Well, maybe I don't know.
I think
that's
for
too fun.
2 or 3 years, Kaisa was
Played for you.
my accompanist.
Oh, I love it.
Why did I say accompanist? I
Just say
sure
it,
did.
Like, really fast.
Accompanist. She was.
Oh, that's great.
She tried not to criticize my pitch too much.
Okay. Well, see, she's got perfect pitch.
I know.
And so I'm sure it's hard, to avoid saying anything.
Yes.
But it was funny because we would try to trick her too, or, play 2 notes at once. Or,
Right.
Some of those
Right.
things. She pretty much always got it, I feel like.
Yep.
But what first got you into music? Your mom obviously loves music.
Yes.
So is she the inspiration for the jazz, or where did it all come from?
I mean, my whole family's musical. My mom's more musically inclined than my dad. But they did have a band together in the 70s with your dad.
And my mom, too.
And your mom. Oh, my gosh.
She did some backup singing.
See, we go way back.
Way back.
So my mom was, and she's still alive. I can talk about how she's alive. My mom is a great singer and piano player, and she used to teach piano lessons out of the house. And she was actually the choir director at Logos.
She did a music group out of your house too.
Yeah,
with little kids.
Yeah,
I mean, I was a little kid.
Yes,
but
and so we had just a lot of music going on. My mom always loved soul, and jazz hadn't been a thing in our family. It was when she was teaching choir at Logos, and she's like, "Oh, the jazz festival's here in Moscow. We should take our choir there because why not?" And so it was kind of like, well, I guess we have to learn how to do jazz. And so we get those little choir arrangements of jazz, all the cheesy jazz choir stuff.
Yeah.
But I was loving it. I was loving the harmony. I was loving the rhythm. And then we went to the jazz festival, and, we didn't like win any awards or anything, but just seeing it being performed by professionals and learning from the professionals, I fell in love with it. It was so exciting, the improv and all of that. So I felt like I had found this style because the harmony was so complex, and my ear just wants harmony, wants like lots of harmony with all the weird notes.
So all the hard stuff to do.
All the hard stuff. I wanted all the weird notes, and so that was jazz. So that was kind of how it happened. And then I competed my senior year of high school at the jazz festival, and also did not win anything. That's right.
But that's a good experience.
Yes. And I continued to not win awards all through college anytime I competed. Yes.
But
yes.
You made it and supported yourself as a musician for 14 years.
Never won any awards. That's right. But I got jobs. So
there you go.
Yes. Yeah. So that was how I fell in love with it, and volunteered at the festival in college, and got to drive around the artists. And
Kaisa did that too.
Oh yeah. It was so fun. Got to talk their ear off, all the way to the Spokane airport.
Oh wow.
Yes, at 3 a.m. or whatever. That was fun.
Yeah.
So
that's how you got into jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also play some with Ben, don't you?
Yes. So my husband is also a musician, and we are worlds apart in terms of our musical backgrounds. So he's like loves Tom Waits and Americana and folk and all that. And he plays guitar and sings. He's got a great voice, and he likes, he has that like gravelly, yelly thing. He used to be in like a metal band, So you got me over here in my jazzy jazz world, and he's like, yelling folky music. So we're still working on where do our musical worlds collide, and we think we may have found it. So.
Are you composing for that specifically?
We were thinking about, so he has a ukulele. It's like, okay, what if he played ukulele and did like alternative 90s covers? We loved 90s alternative music. That's where we just like, we both had, we loved it. So, can we play System of a Down on the ukulele and I sing it? Yeah. So maybe we'll,
so this coming.
Might be. This is what I'm feeling. I don't,
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's funny.
Or blues. We
Okay.
both love blues. So, yeah, we need to figure out our husband-wife sound, because that's required.
Yes.
if you have two musicians that are married, you have to have like a joint project. It's just required.
It makes complete sense. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time because we have to
Yes.
make sure we get you to your next thing. But in terms of where people can find out information about voice lessons, where should they go?
So I have a website for all of my music things. So my stage name and my actual name,
Right.
it's really fantastic. It's my first and my middle name together, which is Michal Angela.
Yes.
So, and it's Michal without the E.
Important.
This is important. Michal without the E, and then Angela.com.
Okay.
And then / vocal coaching, or you could just go to the website and you can see there's a little button that says vocal coaching.
Perfect.
Or if you want to find some, YouTube videos, I've got music videos and albums and stuff like that.
And so if they want to hear you on iTunes or anywhere else, do they do the same? Michal Angela.
Michal Angela. If you just look up Michal Angela on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere.
It's there.
It's even on Napster.
Oh, wow.
That exists somewhere.
I didn't know it was still a thing.
It still exists somewhere.
Oh,
yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So look her up at Michal Angela. And Michal, thank you for
you.
coming on. And sorry we have to make it short today, but
this
really
was a surprise.
appreciate it. Yes, it was great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.